Perfect. I'd like to call the meeting of the August 21st, 2018 Planning Board to session.
22nd.
August 22nd, Planning Board to session. Thank you all. Just checking everybody early. Before we start, I'm just going to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves. We'll start on my right, Mr. Davies.
Robert Davies, alternate.
Teresa Bascom.
Tony Dumas, Select Board.
Edward Veal.
Susan Mooney.
Gary Anderson.
And Mr. Davies will be seated and voting for Mr. Clough tonight. So we have the first item on the agenda tonight is a continuation of case 18002-SUB, application from Jeffrey Cole Builders LLC requesting a subdivision to create 4 residential lots from 18.8808 acres. Property is located at 211 Old Turnpike Road in Nottingham and is identified as tax map 15, lot 8. And before I have the applicant speak, I just want to bring the board up to speed. The applicant had requested 2 variances from the zoning board, and that was held last night. The notice of decision was posted today, so you all might not have seen it yet. So I'll read that notice into the record. The zoning case 18-009-VA, application from Jeffrey Cole Builders requesting variance from Article 2, Section C1C to permit a building outside of the 30,000 square foot area, and from Article 2, Section C1B1 to permit a shared driveway not kept to the common boundary. The property is located at 211 Turnpike Road, Nottingham, New Hampshire, and is identified as tax map 15, lot 8. This was approved with no conditions at last night's zoning board meeting. So that's that part. And so now I'll invite the applicant to just kind of bring up any other items in general before we open it back up to the board again.
I'm Roscoe Blaisdell again, and this is Dennis Quintal. You met him out in the fields on the sidewalk. One of the suggestions at the last meeting was for the first lot, lot 8, to start it off where the original driveway was, and we've done that, and it does make it for an easier slope up the hill. Parts of it at like 12%, I believe, but it's that works even better than it was. And you asked me to locate the foundation.
Yeah, any significant.
Yeah, so I'm showing that. That's on that last lot. And I talked to Susan. I had problems finding that tree, so she have to flag it for me. Maybe I was looking on one lot and she saw it on another.
Well, I was talking with Dennis.
Yeah.
Yes. Where do you think it was, Dennis?
I can't remember. I mean, we saw so many trees. There were a lot of nice trees out there, but I can't remember the specific one that you talked about. But you know, there are some nice trees.
I'll put some flagging
So
on it.
Susan flags it when I go out. Before the plan's final, I'll show it on the plan.
Yeah, it'll certainly help to stabilize that area too.
Yeah. Okay.
If memory serves, I believe it was on Lot 8 too, sort of on the western edge of it, in that flat area, or near that flat area. But
Good for you, Tony.
I looked there, but I didn't see any tree more special than the rest. But
yeah,
I'll flag it.
flag it for me. I'll locate it.
Thank you.
he's got a hike out there again.
That's all right.
But Dennis, since our last meeting, has shown erosion control type things, and ditching and culverts, and I guess Dennis can go over that.
Yeah, I think the thing to, anytime you open up a hill like that, there's going to be some possible erosion situations. So you have to really be on top of not overcutting, and any of the swales along the edge of the driveways really need to have stone check dams, which are piles of stone periodically to minimize the amount of water coming down the hill as far as curbing the velocity so it doesn't pick up sediments. And we showed a number of different driveway culvert crossings so that the water won't build up and channel, so that we have on each driveway at least a couple of culverts that pick up the water and get it back to more of a sheet flow with riprap at the end of it, and get it to go through the woodland prior to getting down to the edge of the roadway. So that's why we try to capture as much as the water as we can to get it across the driveway, so by the time you get to the end of the driveway, there really isn't that much water that comes down the swales at the edge of the roadway. So we will we'll make sure that that gets done, the culverts and riprap on each end of the culvert, and the stone check dams along the ditch line will help that. Also, we showed silt fence or core logs or whatever to on the downhill side of all the cut, so that will prevent any sediments from getting down into that wooded area on the south side of all the cut situations, and even up in where the houses are also. So that will minimize any erosion or sediment runoff from any of the cut situations. So I think that was one of the main challenges for me to take a look at, and that's what we talked about at the site walk. And so I think I've tried to accomplish that with the culverts and the check dams and the silt fence, erosion control.
So at this point, if you're favorable of the layout and all that, we need to apply for state subdivision approval on the last two lots, sublot 2, sublot 3. That's something that takes 3 weeks or so, and I don't foresee any issues with them. Then we have 3 driveways we need permits from the state. They do take a while. But,
Roscoe, quick question, and please let me know if I'm seeing this incorrectly. On lot 8-3, the one that has this old foundation,
yes.
is the driveway going right over it?
Unfortunately, yes, we can't avoid it. Yeah, that's the only place we can, put the driveway. And it's kind of a hole in the ground that could be a hazard to someone to fall into.
So it's going to be filled in, that's not something that is protected in any way? That's why I'm asking.
No,
because I know they do with
cemeteries,
stone
but-
walls.
I mean, if you can avoid it.
Okay.
When the time comes to do the work up there, I mean, if there's any way possible to kind of scoot around it a little bit and maintain as much of it as possible, I mean, obviously to try to do that, because, I mean, anybody that buys that lot would certainly consider it some historical significance.
Right,
So-
that was my thought,
So,
is
yeah,
that
we
it was-
always try to keep stuff like that.
Okay.
Same with a tree.
Okay.
At this point, there's no historical significance, I mean, there's no history of that known, if it's even a home or if it was
No,
if
I
it was an animal pen.
I mean, how did they get there?
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't a driveway up to it, or, I don't.
The road has been changed.
Well, they did cut a lot when they built the
The road has been
so-
changed.
So maybe it was.
In my lifetime, that
easier.
road has been changed.
In your lifetime?
In my lifetime, that section of Route 4 has been changed, yes.
Wow, I thought it was.
No, it's not
Boy,
been,
you're-
no,
You looked.
thanks. I was little, but I remember
Okay,
it being changed.
okay.
All right. So before we have probably more board discussion, the public hearing has never been closed, just been continued. So now, since we have revised plans before us, I'd like to invite anybody that would like to speak for the application to come up first. That's a butter or anybody. And second would be anybody speaking against. And third would be just general questions or comments as an abutter. Anybody? I know you're the applicants. You're all set. All right, so we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. So we have a couple of items to act on before we move too far along. We have a waiver request on the slopes of the driveways. And to that, we do have a letter from the fire department in their assessment of the plans. Kind of go hand in hand, so I'll read the fire chief's letter first.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I just want to make sure it's clear that the plans that you have before you are not the plans that these comments are referring to. I didn't get those plans in time to get them to the fire department. Okay, just making sure that that's.
Yeah, okay, I think some of these comments are still, would still pertain, because I don't think there was a change to that, so. So with that in mind, the fire chief, Chief Vilchek, and this was when the plans were dated 6/26/18. He had 3 comments. The first one was request planning board ensure driveways width and grades comply with current Nottingham residential requirements. Let's see if I'll read all 3 and then we can confirm if they pertain still or not. 2, length and configuration of lot 8 and lot 8-1 driveways raise concern with backing emergency vehicles. Recommend requiring a turnaround area sufficient to handle fire and EMS apparatus be added to driveway plans in proximity of houses. And 3, basic fire protection is addressed satisfactorily by Note 10 NFPA 13D requirement. And Note 10 is still the same. That's the one from the applicant indicating that all the houses will have sprinklers.
I think it's different now. The one so it should be good now, Note 10.
No, Note 10 was fine. It mentions the
Okay.
NFPA 13D, which is what you referenced, and that
okay.
they'll have sprinklers, so that's fine.
8-1, I don't think it's changed though, has it? Lot 8-1?
We haven't changed it. When we walked out there, we discovered you could go halfway up, and it's a really good site, so there's a good chance we'll only go halfway up the hill.
Is that what we talked about last night? I thought you had shown it further down, but not,
No, the one for the variance, we
was 8-.
originally were going to go to the top of the hill on Lot 2.
Okay, and went down, but not 8-1. So you're moving 8-1 down as well?
We could if we wanted to. We'd like to keep it the way we have it. He can build anywhere within that, 76,000 square feet buildable. So
What the fire chief is saying in his note is that the driveways raise concern with backing of emergency vehicles. So if,
going to the top of the hill, yeah.
looking at the plan that you had
Yeah.
from 6/28. So it's just building in turning around areas.
Round area at the top. Yeah,
Correct.
that's easy
For-
enough. That's fairly flatter than some of the other areas, so
Okay.
a turnaround, more of a turnaround up in that neighborhood is certainly something
All right.
that can be done.
So we just want to make sure that gets put into the,
All right. So that brings us, I think we should act on the waiver before we
go further?
go further, because we got, we'll probably determine some of the other items, so. It's not in here, it was in the older packets. So I'll read the waiver. So we have a waiver request from the applicant indicating we would like to make the driveways with a steeper grade than the required 8%. The maximum we are asking for is 14%, one of the driveways, and 8 to 12% on the others. With an 8% grade, the driveways would have to be longer with switchbacks and cause more disturbance to the ground. Many driveways in Nottingham and other local towns are at a grade in excess of 14%, so we believe this is a reasonable request. So they're seeking a waiver of Article 15, Section 3.24 from the Nottingham subdivision regulations.
Have we got a copy of the waiver in here, Ed?
It's not, it was in the original packets.
Okay.
So I can pass this around if anybody needs to see it. And I may still have a copy of it, but did you want to see it? Or?
Please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll open, while that's being read, I will open discussion from the board on the waiver.
I just want to comment, Mr. Chairman, that Dirk sent an email today, and his opinion was that driveway slopes at 12 to 14% were acceptable to him.
Yep, sorry. So Dirk had 2 comments today that were sent to Joanna after the ZBA decision was made. They were that applicant needs to adequately address how the driveway cut side slopes will be stabilized. Some areas are over 20 feet high, and driveway slopes at 12 to 14% are acceptable to Dirk. And I do have a copy of that somewhere else, but-
Mr. Chairman, do you want to vote, a motion now?
Oh, I was gonna open it to discussion,
We have discussed.
the discussion.
Do we need a motion for discussion?
I move that we accept the variance, or the waiver request on the driveways as written and
Second.
read.
All right, do we have any discussion?
I have one question. There's no mention of the length of the driveway that's going to be at that grade in the waiver. In other words, it could be 500 feet at 14%, or it could be 50 feet at 14%.
One of our sheets shows every length and every percentage, so, you pack it.
Okay, fine.
And that'll be part of the.
So you are working to minimize
Yep,
length
yep.
at the steep slope?
So the waiver we're asking for is shown on a plan that you have, so it's documented.
That answers my question.
On sheet 4.
So,
This one,
Lot-
or those?
so when I calculated this the last time, lot 8-1 appeared to be slightly over 200 straight feet, over 10%. Lot 8-2 looked like it was between 100 and 150 feet of a straight section, so of 14% slope or greater. And I believe lot 8, I didn't calculate the length of it. I don't know if that helps at all. So with that and with the fire chief's comments, I'm a little hesitant to, unless access can be, I guess we can talk about the actual cuts that are going to be needed further into the application, regardless of the waiver. But these aren't short sections that are being requested to be waived from. It's pretty long, straight sections of, 14% and or 10% and over.
Based on the fire chief's comments of the request of turnaround area, if the applicant's willing to do that, and it seems like the applicant's also willing to mitigate any concern with runoff and loss of soil in the cuts. Seems like the applicant's being, bringing a sensible case here.
And I think the greater concern is 8-1, which they've already said they will do the turnaround in. The other driveways appear to be fairly short, and I don't know if you changed page 4 in this, on our packet, to reflect your changes in driveways or not, because it doesn't look like it at all for 8-2 and 8-3. Unless I'm reading the grades and the lengths wrong on this sheet versus where the driveways now are, because they weren't, when you initially showed us this kind of like eagle wing deal on our other plans that we had seen. I don't have an older plan with me, so.
I believe those are the correct,
Pardon me?
8-1 and 8-2, 8-3, I think they're all the right length.
But what I'm saying is that with on page 4 of this, it looks as though your length and your grades are greater than what they appear to be on this,
The scale, that's all.
this
Well,
other
One sheet's at
plan.
80 scale and the other one's at 50, so that's why it
Okay.
makes it look longer. It's
All right, well,
it's a
what
scale factor.
because what I'm wondering is if he's seeing what is true that I'm not seeing, because I don't see these as being exceptionally long and exceptionally high, based on what I'm seeing here.
Well, like 14% is like a foot and a half, just over a foot, between a foot and a half and 2 feet in 12 feet. So that's like from me to you, as far as the grade is concerned. So when we're talking about 14%, that would be, half of that would be, I mean, that's 14 feet in 100, 7 feet in 50. Half of that would be 3.5 feet in 25. Half of 3.5 would be, what, foot and a half, foot and 3/4 in 12 feet. So foot and a half from here to there in 12 feet is, it's really not very steep. And there are a lot of driveways that are steeper. These driveways, I haven't kept driveways at a minimum width of 10 feet. I've made them wide enough, because going up around the curves and stuff, I realize that if you have an emergency, you have to get an ambulance up there. You know, you want to make sure that it's wide enough to get fire trucks up there and ambulances. So when I did the cuts and the grading, I made them wide enough, the roads wide enough, so they can get vehicles up and down without a problem.
Okay.
So, and I didn't really focus so much on the turnaround at the top, but certainly can make turnarounds wherever the house is, how they want to do the turnarounds, whether they do have single cars or double car driveways, we don't know, but obviously we need to make room enough to get vehicles turned around up there so they don't have to back down,
Yeah.
back down the hills.
Well, when this gets built, the building inspector is going to be part of this process, and I assume the fire chief, and if he doesn't think the turnaround's suitable, then he's not going to let it go until it is. And we did a lot of engineering just to get up there. The turnaround is like simple. I mean, very simple.
Okay.
Yeah, to answer Teresa's question about the links that I was saying, these are the same, because this was where the A2 was proposed at the last meeting. So I believe that's where the cuts were shown from.
Because they just look
But-
so much flatter on,
Yeah.
and I know I'm looking at it one-dimensional, I get that, but the way they just
Scales.
kind of veer off and go like this as opposed to traveling up the hill, it appeared to me as though it was going to be a non-issue versus an issue.
Right, so my concern was that on 2 of those lots, at least, that you had, you know, straight runs of these slopes of, you know, over 100 feet.
That steepest one, which is 14%, is on A2, which is a straightaway. It's right on a straight
that-
section, it's not on a curve.
So if that was 100, if that's a 100-foot straight shot, that'd be a 100-foot, I mean, I'm sorry, a 14-foot change in elevation from
14,
here to
exactly.
that into that. Do you have a question?
No, I'm thinking with my hands. I'm French, I do that.
Is there any other further questions or discussion on the waiver? Nope, seeing none. All those in favor of the waiver, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries 5 to 1. Sorry, can't be counting how many people we had here tonight. So, let me get this back in. Bear with me a minute, just want to put the original back in the, let's see, what was it? All right. So now, bring it back to the board for the application in general, so we can, unless the applicant has further that you'd like to add before we discuss the application.
And why are there still, or not directed to you, but why are there still 4 driveway cuts being shown on the plan?
That's the original.
I'll let the
Oh,
applicant speak towards that.
that's Scribner's there. I live on Scribner Road now, so I just forgot them. I'll just have to erase it. Because obviously you don't see a driveway there.
Right.
Yeah, so I'll put an X in that. Because
So
that's
you-
where
so-
it was gonna be.
Exactly, you went back to
And
where the
what I did
original
is I
cut.
copied the word and I didn't
Yeah.
move it, so.
Perfect.
Yeah, the state wouldn't let us put 4 driveways anyways, yeah.
Yeah, so
Thanks for
Mr.
seeing
Davies,
that.
you're referring to what's lot 8 right now, and just that there's a verbiage at the bottom showing 2 separate proposed driveways?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and in Roscoe, Mr.
And
Blaisdell.
even on this big plan, it's
The
on there.
middle one is the one you're saying is going away again, and going back to the original, where the
Original
current
driveway is
driveway
where
is.
it is. Yeah, Move
Yep.
that over, yeah.
Does the board have any, I'm just trying to read back to the original notes on here.
Because I thought it should be moved back there in the first place. That's what I said at the.
Yeah,
at the-
we had, at the walk, yeah.
May I say a couple things,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman? I'm looking at sheet 1, Roscoe, on the notes, and note number 4, the land is located in commercial.
I was supposed to change that to
Industrial.
commercial.
And
Thank
then, note number 6, to create 5 new residential building lots. And we're down to 4. Or we're down to 3 new building lots because you had one originally.
Yeah, I'll fix that. Thank you for seeing that.
And
There's an existing lot, so 3 new ones, right?
Yeah, really, it's to create 3 new lots.
Correct.
That's
On
where
an
I'll
existing
put,
larger
make
one. Okay.
3, yeah.
And then I have a concern for down the road. Notes number 13 and 14 address possible erosion concerns. And where some of these driveways are going to be cut with a sidewall, maybe 10 to 20 feet high, what's going to happen down the road if erosion structures put in place don't function after 5 years or whatever, and it washes out?
Maybe I can answer that. Is one of the important things out of excavating into a hill like that is not to over-excavate. The most important thing is to maintain the consistency of the natural soil condition as much as possible. But once it gets excavated, then they put topsoil on it and seed it. And we've got slopes that are 3-to-1 slopes that are easy to mow. And if there's ever a situation where, for one reason or another, it starts to cause some sort of an erosion, then there's a number of things that can be done. They can reseed it. They can put a jute mat. They have this fabric type of stuff that goes down. You staple it into the ground, and that holds it down. And I've seen some of this jute mat that is almost like a 1-to-1 slope. So it works pretty efficiently. Right in back in Epping, right in back of the town hall in Epping, they've got some that's, I noticed it's almost a 1-to-1, and they put some of that jute mat in there, and it works out pretty well behind the town hall in Epping. And just as an example. So, I mean, I think that any of the slopes that are there that we show as proposed cuts can be stabilized pretty easily. If they're done in the springtime, which I hope they don't do cutting in the springtime, it's really challenging to open up a hill like that in the springtime. It should be done in the summertime, and be able to get a good growth of vegetation to help hold the slope. But any time like that, obviously it's a challenge, but it should be carefully monitored and watched by the contractor who's doing the work to make sure after the rainstorms we've been having, are these flash storms. So, those are the things you got to be careful of.
Yeah. Do you anticipate cutting through any ledge rock when you put in the drives?
Did you, in your test pits, what did you find for test pits?
I got good pits. The top of the hill, it got more ledgy. There's a couple spots, but where I showed for the house, I got 6 feet, no ledge.
Okay.
And down at the bottom, like when they redid Old Turnpike Road, it looks like they made a 20-foot cut just to.
Oh,
So I think
lower
we're
it
dealing with
down.
the same stuff. Really, it's just I don't expect any ledge, and we're just kind of working our way up. So pretty soon we're only going to be 3 or 4 feet in the ground, and it's just kind of scraping the slope. So I don't foresee anything.
Thank you.
So a couple of things that we had asked for before, and I don't think are here. So part of the subdivision ordinance, pages 32 and 33 mention, so it's section 10.2 and 10.3, mention grading, erosion, sediment control plans and stormwater management plans. And both these indicate the applicant shall submit plans to the board for interactive land being developed where one or more, for the grading erosion control plan, where one or more of the following conditions are present: disturbed environmentally sensitive areas or disturbed critical areas, which are being disturbed here, and a stormwater management plan. Again, this has a shall, not a may.
Well, we do have it. This set of plans is 9 sheets, so we do have erosion plans. Like sheet 9
So sheet 9
shows
is your erosion,
the
stormwater
details
management.
of what they're gonna do.
Is that the stormwater management then?
No, that would be, oh, sheet. That'd be sheet 3. So he's showing culverts and those little black things, the check dams, so they're right in the ditches, so like every 100 feet-ish or so, it looks like.
You're referring,
Yeah,
just to make sure, you're referring to the purple lines with the, I'm gonna say just black triangles at the end of them for the culverts?
That's riprap that goes at the end of the
Okay.
culvert to get, to dissipate the energy of the pipe, of the water coming out.
Yep.
Minimize the velocity and get it back into a fanned out to more of a sheet flow instead of a shallow concentrated flow. So
And he's
that's
showing
what that is.
and he's showing a silt fence.
Yep, yep. So that's there, and the check dams, the culverts, and the riprap at the end of the culverts.
Thank you.
And the little black things are your little dams.
Those are the check dams, yeah.
Check dams.
On the detail sheet.
Kind of like a crushed rock. I see them along the road occasionally.
In the detail sheet, you can see
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the check dams, whether it's just a pile of stone and just keeps the velocity of the water coming down, and it slows it down, so it doesn't pick up. If you pick up speed, that's when you're gonna get a lot of turbulence.
And
If you
erosion,
keep it more of a laminar type flow, then it doesn't pick up the sediments.
And they work good. I mean, if you didn't have them, I mean,
The other thing that you'll see on the state highway, they'll use those, but they've also been using those sections of core logs, those fabric things that are full
Like
of
socks,
chips.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
silt socks. So you'll see those stapled in. So that could be also used here, because I do show that as a continuous barrier, as the silt sock. So we could also use those in places where, add more if needed. It just depends on, the contractor. He can always add more stone check dams or add more of those sections in there to make sure it manages any of the sediment that comes down the hill.
Would you mind adding, I don't know if those are common for the engineering or surveying symbols? If they're not, could they be added as in the legend? Well, they're actually, currently there is no, oh yes, there is a legend. Could it be added as a legend to just try to make that a little more clear?
can't do that.
Like I said, if those are standard symbols, then not such a big deal, but. So I guess my concern it really goes back to the, this is obviously pretty unique topography here from a lot that we deal with. And the slopes, even with the waiver granted of the driveways, a lot of your cuts, it's mostly cuts for the driveways, very little fills. And a lot of those cuts are, many of them are over 20 feet deep. And up to 70 feet wide to be able to get this slope stabilization. So I know you said you went down 6 feet and didn't hit ledge, but you're talking having to go down potentially 20 feet or more to get below grade to get built back up to a driveway base. And, it makes me pretty nervous with the topography and the ability to be able to stabilize that well.
More like 10, I think.
Yeah, there are,
Like 10 feet if you look
yeah,
at the
there's
cross sections.
10-foot cuts. If you go from the middle of the road straight up, I mean, the slope will go along the side, and you'll be cutting 2 or 3 feet to the left of it, but the actual cut, I think the worst is probably 10 feet.
Well, let's see what the other sheet shows here. Not too bad. Mostly 10-foot cuts at the most. Any cut on that one.
Like,
There's hardly any cuts.
so if you're going from the,
10.
From the middle of the road,
from-
straight
okay,
up,
from the
hitting the
middle.
contour, the worst would be 10 foot of the depth. And you go to the left of it, and then you can't go from
tapers up.
the most extreme area to the left, because it's way to the side. I mean, we're not, over there, it's only being cut a foot or two inches. But the middle of the road itself, I think the worst.
And the ditch line is like maybe 10 feet? To 12 feet?
Yes, I don't see any over 10.
It creates a long slope because you're chasing it because of the slope itself. It looks like a lot deeper cut, but vertically it comes down. But you're chasing the slope up quite a long ways because if it was flat ground, you dig down and then come up, but you're chasing the slope going up the hill too, so. That's why we do the cross section, so you'll be able to see that, and those are 5-foot grid lines.
yep. Okay, so yeah, you're right. It's to the middle, you're correct. Most of them a lot of them are about 10 feet, 10, 12 feet. It's,
And that's only for a short section of each section, right where that upper slope ditch line is where that cut is. Lower side, there's not much, and like I said, you're tapering off as you go up the hill.
Right, so so if I'm looking at these correctly, so on a 12-foot wide driveway, the right edge may have, be, say, level, because it's gonna drop off, but the left edge of the driveway would be 20 feet up, but sloped, yes.
It's sloping coming up, but right where the ditch line is gonna be the deepest.
Correct.
But that's only where the ditch line is.
Right.
And as you come across the road, you're catching up, and then as you're going up the slope, it narrows up. So just where the ditch line is the deepest.
And then so these cuts and fills that are being shown, that's where the final driveway will be. That's not showing. So how much further down do you actually
Well, you do
generally
a
go?
foot to a foot and a half of gravel.
Okay.
For the road, but the ditch line wouldn't be cut anymore, just enough to put topsoil in.
We got that. We got that. And I didn't check all these, but just to make sure that the final, obviously, we have a 3-to-1 vertical on side slopes. So I think some of these were close, but I know you'll get to that when it's actually built. That. Another request, granted the waiver, of the variance, another note I would suggest adding is that lot, proposed lot 8-2, that no further subdivision will occur because the house lot is outside the contiguous area that's being calculated for.
Say
for
that
lot.
again?
So, I'm sorry, so proposed lot 8-2,
Yeah?
yes, 8-2. That's the lot that, the contiguous area that's being utilized for the.
Oh, yes, is lower.
house Is, right, but the 30,000 that's actually.
Above it.
Is above it.
Right.
So I would just suggest that a note be added, that no further subdivision.
Okay.
Will occur of that lot. The others would be stuck with the 4-year rule.
So you want to know that
Subdivision.
with no more subdivision to happen to sublot 2.
Correct.
I mean, I don't know why you want to, but why do you want that note?
Because there
I
is a
want somebody to
30K
come
above
in
it.
in 4 or 5 years saying that, well, there's 30,000 square feet of contiguous area up here.
Oh, okay.
We want to make,
Well,
in 2
well,
acres.
They'd have to go in front of the planning board and it wouldn't pass.
Yeah, plus a frontage variance. which-
Yeah, but, I mean, if the neighbor said, boy, I'd like 20 feet of your land or something, lot line adjustment. As long, then they'd have to come in front of the board
A lot
and
line-
make sure they still have,
Right, a lot line adjustment is different than a subdivision, though, or than subdividing your property.
yeah.
Or I guess no additional lots should be created.
No, yeah,
Some
well,
lot two.
yeah, we're only 3.9 acres, so we wouldn't be able to.
Again, this is recent memory right now, but give 10, 20, 25, 30 years from now, it may not be.
Are you okay with that? You really can't do that. Yep.
That's fine, we got that, you got that. Sorry, I'm just going through it.
As Dennis
checking
said,
out the
there's
old
no
notes.
frontage anyway, right? It's really,
And you couldn't have a backlot subdivision because it's a new lot.
And then, let's see, the paving requirement. Do you plan on paving the driveways?
The discussion was had last night.
Well,
And
no-
I can tell you what they said.
Well, the only, so there's a requirement in the town that the apron, the first, I think, 12 feet be paved, but I'm trying, so,
We're
town
on a
now
state
requires
highway,
it.
so the state.
but the goal of that is to try to eliminate a lot of the stuff, dirt and things like that ending up in the roadway, even if you have proper erosion methods. Just cars traveling over a dirt driveway will track dirt into the road, and sediment into the road, so if it's, the thought is that if there's a paved apron.
I
that
think a lot of
they'll drop
times,
most
you
of it.
know, homeowners would want to have that anyways, at least the first, 15 to 20 feet of the driveway, because on a road like that, when it comes time for you to get out onto the road, you don't want to be spinning on gravel. Right. Be able to take off when there's an opening for traffic. So that's why a lot of times, at least the first 20 feet is paved.
You gotta consider too, with the steeper stretches, plowing, a gravel road surface is gonna do a lot of damage to the erosion control structures that you put in place, the grading, the sediment that gets pushed into the ditches and so on. So paving for those driveways would seem to be,
There's a lot of.
Prudent.
Yeah. There's options with some people that they plow their own, maintain their own driveway.
Yeah.
Whether it's gravel or, and a lot of the people nowadays, if they wanted to pave, they certainly pave it.
Yeah, at last night's ZBA meeting, the statement was made that it's really up to the homeowners, they'll most choose to have it paved.
Yeah, and our subdivision regs, so just going back to, it's 15.3.2, page 61, which mentions the driveway aprons. It doesn't give any kind of freedom whether or not the subdivision is occurring on a state road or a town road. It just says unpaved driveways will require paved aprons with a minimum distance of 12 feet from the edge of roadway pavement. So you don't have to pave the whole thing, but that apron would have to be paved. I'm sorry, page 61.
Yeah, I was letting you
Like
know.
Issue with that?
wasn't there language in there about
Yeah.
like a bump to keep sediment from getting onto the
That'll be part of the state permit anyways, to have
Yeah.
a slope away from the road and then go up. So we always have to go down and up again, so.
If you don't build it right, they will let you know.
they'll let you know, yeah.
They will come.
They will come, send Bubba after you.
All right, so I think,
So I can make a note 16 that all lots will have a 12-foot paved apron,
Minimum.
a minimum, yeah.
Yeah, 12 feet.
So quick question on lots 8-1 and 8-2, on the cuts, particularly in the steeper stretches, like on lot 8-1, at section 1.00, 1.50, it really looks like you're basically like shaving the face of the grade as you're cutting up the hill. If you do hit ledge there, how are you gonna control the potential for a rock fall down that? Because that's quite a height for a boulder to come down if it broke away from the ledge face.
Well, they wouldn't make vertical cuts to any ledge.
No.
Would probably go around it as
But
much
it
as
looks
possible.
like well, I mean, it's still pretty steep, right? You know, like on the side of any given highway or interstate, when there's a rock cut there, you know, sometimes you have blankets to catch the boulders as they come down. And if you do hit ledge there, you know, same thing on 8-2.
Well, they're a 3-to-1 slope, so they're not a vertical cut, so they're
Oh, yeah.
a sloping cut.
But a boulder will still fall.
It could roll down there, but there's also a ditch line there, so, and if there's anything that looks loose, the track machines that they have nowadays could crawl right up there and make sure that it gets taken up and brought down before it loosened up. That's also part of the original excavation portion of it, to make
Yeah.
sure that there's nothing like that that would cause a problem.
Make sure, I think I captured all Dirk's stuff from before. You did. All right, any further questions or comments or discussion? Seeing none, at this point, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve I gotta find the thing here. Approve the application from Jeffrey Cole Builders of case 18-002 sub, requesting a subdivision to create, do I put 3 or 4 in this? Do I have to go by 4, which is posted?
We're creating 4 lots.
Of 3 new, but 4 lots. Off of property on 211 Old Turnpike Road in Nottingham, identified as tax map 15 lot 8 with conditions. No further subdivision of 8-2. Note 4 is changed to commercial zone. Lot number 6, note number 6 is changed to 3 residential building lots. A note 16 is added for a 12-foot minimum paved apron. Lot 8-1 will have a sufficient turnaround for emergency service vehicles.
And DOT permits?
And DOT permits will be obtained prior to,
And state subdivision approval for lots
Great.
2 and 3.
okay.
Sage River. And then monuments and bounds will be
Right.
set.
Okay. And monument bounds will be set.
I second.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion from the board?
Joanna's got her hand up.
Sorry.
Requiring impact fees to be noted in June 13th?
They were originally, they were on here. Yeah, with note 9.
I just didn't want it to be missed if it was required or not.
Nope.
Yep, nope, it is on there. Impact fee is on there. Nope, it's okay, good question.
I could just go back, my concern is just the overall slopes and the cuts that have to be created for the driveways, and the lengths of those. Where one side can be, level, and then from the edge of the driveway to 20 feet out, it's going up, 20 feet, or in some cases. So I think that slope is probably off for these cuts and fills. I think it's probably gonna have to be more than that. So I just wanna make sure that the final slope is the grading is done according to our plans, or our requirements. Anybody else, any further questions? No? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 5-1. So, you got all the, all the conditions in the notes, you got it? Yep.
Do we have 90 days, a year? The driveway permit.
We do have, in the subdivision, we do have some sunset clauses automatically. So we do normally add those in additionally to state them.
Yeah, the states.
Isn't it,
We do have them. They are built into the,
And
I don't remember.
you give us 6, and it comes to 6, we don't have to, we just say, give the letters, please give us another.
Continuance,
Yeah,
Right.
6 or whatever.
yeah. Yeah, if you're approaching any of these time limits because of DES or DOT, yeah. just-
DOT will take a while, DES is quick.
Yep. If you approach any of those, just, try to be in advance and send us a request for continuation
Yep.
or of the.
And just don't give
approval.
us a letter, it's been 6 months, you're denied.
Yeah.
So we'll get on top of that, and we'll get the driveway, we'll start the ball rolling now. I mean,
Excellent.
We're ready.
All right.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
good night, good night.
Yep.
Where do we, is that in, the ZO or the planning
Was that in
board?
for the times?
Subdivision? Yeah.
Subdivision regs. I know Paul was pretty strict about having that into the, in there.
Where do we find those timelines? Action, decision.
I was just looking it up in the table of contents.
Would it be in
maybe.
the index?
I'm looking right now.
What are you looking for?
Expiration of approved plans on page 43.
If you don't start this and finish it by.
Thank you. I knew, a lot of our boards were, we forget that commonly, and especially as things,
See
get
that written on
continued.
page 43. Expiration is on page 44.
12 months.
Oh, there it is, I see it.
Shall expire in 2 years from the date the plan is signed.
He's gone.
An extension not to exceed 1 year may be granted by a majority vote of the board, so long as it is applied for at least 30 days prior to the expiration date.
There's also a 12-month.
It's 2 years. It's on page 44, if you want to take the exact verbiage from there, Joanna. And so that would go on their decision to them, correct? So did they
I
have
think that's. what
that
we're showing.
information?
I've never done that before, that's a good idea. I mean,
Thank you. Especially seeing how I neglected to say it.
No, I didn't mean it like.
No, no,
I didn't
I-
mean it like that.
I
meant,
did. I didn't
We
say
miss
it,
it a
and I-
lot.
and I
It,
should have.
Did not mean it as.
I'm not used to doing that, because we don't get that many.
Right, and especially as they continue and we
Subdivisions.
add conditions, it's that's my
We had
fault.
multiple
Page
conditions.
43.
My fault for not catching that one.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, page 43.
Page 44, right, you said?
It's page 44 on mine.
Oh, it's
It
40
says,
it's 43 in mine.
it says 43 in the index, but if you don't have the updated on the,
No, there's, that's what I was saying, there's two different
maybe
limits
that's it.
here.
I've got
Page 43
2015.
talks about expenditure of at least 25% of the infrastructure costs required for a development proposal within 12 months of the set approval. And then page 44 mentions that the automatic 2-year with only a 1-year possible extension at most.
You could simply cite it as Article 11, Section 9.
All right,
That's why.
moving on. Next on our agenda is a SRP proposal discussion regarding protection for lower order streams and rivers. If that's the proposal that I was sending to Dirk, I misunderstood the request for the RFP, and I thought it was for the zoning ordinance and.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. The next item on the agenda, the SRPC proposal discussion. If this is the request for proposal that I wrote for, that I sent to Dirk for review, I had understood that that was about the whole zoning ordinance rewrite and conformity and clarity, and
This discussion that I have noted in here is actually Sue, the
Oh,
one.
thank you.
about the monies that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's what I thought it might be.
I
sorry.
have not received anything about the RFP, so I think that's still one where it's
That's-
not me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
so that's separate, and I did not include language for that. in that.
Do you want to hear about it?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Demerit, you
love
can help
to.
us out too, okay? Okay. At the last Conservation Commission meeting, Kyle Pimental came and spoke to Conservation Commission members because we were interested in pursuing some local protection for rivers that were not classified as fourth order, such as the streams that come out from Pawtuckaway are protected, Pawtuckaway Lake, and the North River from about Jabig Road south downstream are protected. But none of the other smaller streams in town have any local protection except a building setback of 50 feet based on soils. So Mr. Pimental from Stratford Regional Planning said that he would pull some ordinances from local towns to for us to review. And we are having a 8 o'clock meeting, I think next Monday or Tuesday morning, just to discuss exactly what we would like Stratford Regional Planning to do. We can have them develop an overlay district that works on a computer, or it can just be simple to design a warrant article that would work and be practical for voters to put on the March warrant. And we all seem to feel this has been languishing for 18 years since the last time it was discussed. And it certainly is an action item on the last master plan update.
Sue, what would something like that potentially look like? I mean, I'm just wondering if you have any idea at this point, what the protection pieces would be.
It would be-
restrictive?
It would be a setback more than 50 feet. They generally don't take into consideration slopes, vegetation and soils, but they find a measurement that's practical for, say, the average conditions that you would find along a river, along a stream.
Okay.
We really haven't gone into the meat and potatoes of how this works and how successful it is. And that's what we plan to investigate.
On Monday.
But now all we have are setbacks because it's a wetland. And I think my personal opinion is that regulations are important because they are a learning tool for residents who might not be familiar with what's proper or not proper to do next to a stream. You know, outreach is really the most important aspect, I think, of regulations, particularly with protecting our water in Nottingham.
Right.
So these minor streams don't fall under the jurisdiction of shoreline protection, evidently.
That's correct. It has to be a fourth order stream. So we have, I have a list, but it's in my other bag. We have the Pawtuckaway River that comes out on Route 156. We have the water that comes out of Drowns Dam by Deerfield Road. We have the Mile Brook that meets with this water, becomes the Elliott River, which parallels Flutter Street, and that's a protected fourth order. That combines with the Bean River, which is protected, and then the North River is protected from there. Don't think that we have protections for Little River. Is that protected, Sam?
I was thinking that the Little River was protected when they designated that as the
Protected river?
protected river.
See, only the fourth order, and that was the deal made with the legislature. Can't protect the whole watershed,
Yeah, I know.
so it was the fourth order streams.
That comes out of Mandums, and then goes through Nottingham Lake and then empties into the Lamprey in Lee.
There's a whole website, Joanna. Your computer's down, but it's the FEMA list of protected rivers and streams in the state, and it's town by town by town. And the last building inspector gave me a copy of the protected rivers and streams in Nottingham
So,
in my other bag.
so if I'm understanding correctly, so one of Kyle's, Mr. Pimentel's first tasks is that he's gonna pull some language from towns that surround us.
Yes.
That are kind of doing this already, so it's.
Yes, that have
Again,
things in
not us
place.
creating
Yeah.
anything new, we're having to go through that process. It's trying to see what other people are doing and see if we want to do that here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so it sounds like it's multifold, that one is water quality, and then I'm sure flooding is part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to decrease flooding incidents.
Is the setback right now, the 50-foot, is that from flood or from the edge of the water?
High water. I'm not sure that if the regulations say it's from the 100-year flood. I think it's just high water
For which part? For the state or for us?
for us.
For us, we don't classify, we classify by soil, so if it's poorly drained, it's 50, and if it's very poorly drained, it's 75, so it's edge of
From the edge of the,
very
High
poorly drained
water.
or poorly drained soils.
from the edge of high water, not from the edge of flood water?
We don't distinguish, to my knowledge, that I can remember from our regulations. We don't have setbacks specifically from rivers and water. We usually go by soil. So soil class, so if it's a poorly drained soil, it would be 50 feet from that, it'd be 75 from a very poorly drained. So having a river or a pond.
So
it would
river-
fall under one of those.
River, pond, or,
Edge of it.
as long as it's not, the pond would have to be of a certain size, right, before it's considered,
I think it's 10 acres.
yeah,
Yeah.
then that comes into state regulations.
But the regulations we have in place now are for building. They don't address activities like dumping leaves or running a motorized vehicle, right at the edge of the river or anything like that. It's just you can't put your buildings there. It's a setback for
Even walking trails,
structures.
even walking trails on the edge of a river add to the
That's a-
bank erosion.
Yeah, that's a concern, yeah.
Yeah, so some of that would probably
This is
fall
all
outside our
that we'll be
purview. But
looking into to see what's practical and not overwhelming.
And this goes back to, where towns can be a little more, have the ability to be more restrictive in some areas than the state. We just can't be less restrictive. So this is one of the ones where local control is granted versus, so it gives the town some control over some things versus relying on the state to do it.
Yeah, but the state has nothing
Right.
for first, second, and third order streams. There's no language. So that's where we are, I guess. You have anything else to say, Sam?
No, I covered it.
Thank you both.
You're welcome.
So the question is the planning board willing to release funds to the Conservation Commission for this research with the Halfman,
See, we don't know,
right?
right, we don't know where that's going. Once we decide how much we want Stratford Regional to do for us, then Kyle will do up a proposal. And then we will bring the proposal to the planning board, and if they roll their eyes, we might just have to bring it to the voters, or put it in our own budget. Those are three different alternatives.
Does the Conservation Commission not have a budget? I thought you guys had
We
monies.
do, but we don't have anything for a planner.
Oh,
We
okay.
don't have a line item for a planner.
Gotcha.
We
Okay.
can- We can have a planner, but we just don't have any money.
In this original topic or item, can you just review again, or where did it come? Was this from the master plan and assigned to the planning board, and we kind of asked Concom to follow up on it, or was this something that Concom?
Yes. it was directed for the planning board to do, and then the Conservation Commission volunteered. That was me, a couple of years ago.
All right, so yeah, I think at this point, it's probably premature for us to
Even
decide
move in that direction.
that
right,
until we have
yeah.
some more, because it may be something where, you know,
We'll see
every
what
surrounding
happens.
town has very similar language, and we can look at if we want to, you know, the board can just discuss that language, versus having a planner redraft it. I think we should
You know,
table.
particularly
table
where,
that part.
we're not a dues-paying town anymore, it's a pay-as-you-go.
Yep. Okay. All right. Anybody else on that one? No? All right. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sam.
This is the time where we invite the public to speak, if anybody wants to speak. Nothing else from Sam. So, a time we carve out of every meeting to let people come in and ask questions and things, and we may or may not be able to answer them depending on what they pertain to, but we're here for you at every meeting for that. Moving on to minutes. What minutes do we,
Unfortunately, I still don't have
okay. So
them.
we will,
Actually, I stand corrected. I sent out
I was just gonna say, you sent out one set.
the last meetings because
Oh,
I didn't
yes.
have the recording.
Right.
And I got 2 comments from you and then nothing.
yep.
Yeah.
So we have,
I thought you responded,
I did.
Teresa.
Yeah.
Oh, and then yours. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Mom.
That's okay. You can ignore
so
me.
that was the minutes of August 8th, 2018. So we can act on those tonight if anybody wants to make a motion, or we can
I
table
move we
all.
accept August 8th, 2018 minutes as amended.
Second?
We have a motion and a second for the minutes of August 8th, 2018. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 6-0. And we will table the minutes of May 23rd, June 13th, and July 11th until our next meeting.
And just a point of order, Ed.
Yep.
You didn't ask for the staff updates.
Did not, you're right. I skipped right past that. I was gonna do it after.
We're getting
Thanks.
You have something you have to say.
I said it.
So now we got the minutes out of the way. I would like to bring it back to the table. We'll go to staff first. Joanna, any items you have for the board?
Paul Kane has reached out to me. He's making great headway on getting materials prepared for the next hearing, which is not next meeting, but the meeting after. So September 12th, day after the primary.
And before you move past that, I know we had promised him, the board had promised him that we would kind of give him headway or give him feedback on council's review.
Yes, and he has received.
He did, yeah.
review,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yep, thank you. And the building inspector, Dale Sylvia, is okay with coming for the Keene meeting on the 12th. And then he is also willing to have materials ready for the board based on his questions, concerns, comments on the zoning ordinance and what he wants to get clarification, so he's enforcing things as they are right now, but making sure he understands them. So he's coming to you on the 26th, unless something happens between now and then.
The 26th of August or 26th?
September.
September, okay. So,
Okay, we
I
have
thought
Kane
he
on
was coming on the 11th.
12th.
The 12th.
Oh.
He's
12th.
coming to meet you guys on the 12th and be here for clarification on his take on Paul Kane for your request.
Okay.
But he won't
Oh,
have
okay.
material prepared for zoning issues until the 26th.
Okay, so the 26th will be our combined meeting with him and the ZBA?
That I forgot to check with the ZBA on, but I can ask that tonight.
Okay.
Seeing as you have a meeting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're not required, but if they want to have it be a joint meeting with us and him to meet and greet, and save everybody some time, especially him coming in at night twice, I welcome them.
Okay.
And then he'll have, you said, will he have things to us before the 26th, so we can just kind of review it and make sure we're all,
That's our goal.
yeah, okay, perfect.
Our goal, yeah.
Thank you for doing that and coordinating that. And then, is there anything else on your part?
I think that's all. I don't have any new cases for the planning board.
Don't forget, Sam.
Coffee cup.
So,
I thought you wanted to make a comment.
the master plan is meeting on the 13th, at 6:30 in conference room 1. And that's all I have right now.
All right, thank you. Mr. Davies?
I've said enough tonight.
All set.
Anything from the BOS?
Nothing new. Our last meeting was canceled due to lack of agenda items, and then subsequent to that, we had some downpours on some washed out roads and all of the discontent that has ensued from the condition of the roads. So I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of agenda items to cover at our next meeting. But yeah, that's where we're at.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Who maintains the town's beach road access for the beach? The town beach?
So off the end of Flutter Street.
Yeah, going down through there.
That, I believe, is a town access way. I can double check that, but I
Okay.
believe it is.
Because the weather's really mucked that up.
Yeah, I've been down it. It's pretty rough. The one that goes to the boat launch.
It's rougher.
It's horrible, but that's the
Shouldn't
state.
be rough. It was just, they just did
Oh, good.
drag the
I
grader
haven't-
over it a couple weeks ago.
We haven't been down there. So
It
this-
is? Okay.
My husband took my son for a walk down
Yeah.
there. He said it was
We did ask
But
them.
that was the state. you asked.
Yes, the state is responsible for that road, so we asked them and they gave that road some love and it's apparently,
Good,
Good.
better, yeah,
I guess I
good.
just
yeah.
try to encourage patience on everybody's part. 'Cause
Need to,
with,
yeah, need to be reminded. I mean,
almost all these roads are, if they're dirt, were built with no engineering and drainage control. It was
Right.
minimal. Even some of the roads that were built were done without engineering.
Right, they just drove a bulldozer through the woods and said, here's your road.
Yeah, so so obviously, and I know our road crew gets to the grader up pretty quickly, but, so I thank them for doing that. And,
Yeah,
And you
they're
mentioned-
definitely under a lot of stress, and I'm certainly not trying to add to it in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. I just was wondering if it was the state, like it was with the boat launch,
Oh,
or
right,
if it was
right.
the town, because it is Pawtuckaway that it goes to. That's why I
Right,
was really
right.
asking.
Yeah, I believe that is town-owned land, so the road
Okay.
would be the town's responsibility. I would expect that the grader itself is a little too large to drive through there, given the tight turns and the
Right.
closeness of the trees. But we do have smaller, we got the bucket loader. We may have stuff that could
The benefit of it
smooth
is
it out a little.
keeps people going pretty slow into
Ah,
there,
yeah.
so.
Absolutely, but you don't want to lose your car.
So
right
it helps
away.
keep that down.
And, the other trick to that too is getting it in there when there's nobody in the way.
Yeah.
Which during the summer is pretty hard to do.
Right, not now, it wouldn't be.
Doesn't it close in 2 weeks?
It's gotta be closing soon, yeah.
It is closed. And my husband was the lifeguard for the summer. He said that it was actually repaired, and then the very next day we had another storm.
Right.
And it totally destroyed what was repaired.
Yeah, it's kind of what we're seeing, the more severe bursts of storms.
Been
That's
horrible.
what's predicted, so. Anything else?
That's all I got.
Thank you.
you.
I did get my RFP draft to Dirk. Just pulled some stuff from some of the other towns that have had RFPs and things for his review. He may add language to it or not, but, so that's now on his plate. That's all I had.
I'm gonna go to Gary. I'm all set.
Okay, so, yeah, SRPC, all about transportation. But this year, typically, the 10-year process doesn't begin until December, but that's going to begin sooner now. Colin Lentz will be coming out to different communities to try to get feedback on possible projects that could maybe have already begun or maybe are eligible for funding. So he should be out doing that. Something just that I kind of highlighted in discussion was, there's also something called alternate transportation programs. So that falls under sidewalks, trails, et cetera, and it's a federally funded program. If that's something that Nottingham wants to consider, then now's the time to get in on that. So it's not really a high funded area, but there is funding, and depending on what we might have in that area, we could end up being eligible.
The trails you said, so like for the Marston property type thing, would that fall under that?
Well, we can ask. I don't know, I don't know all the details as far as the qualifications go.
Okay.
But Colin knows all about that, and so he'll be out. And it's Colin's goal to let the commissioners know ahead of time now, when he's going to be out, and maybe try to give everybody the heads up that maybe more people can be involved in the conversation. So,
Transportation.
I did ask, one of the questions I asked was about, whether or not, there's going to be a list brought, should be probably next meeting, about state programs that maybe were or have been in the works for a while and where they're at. So the one that stands out for me is the Route 4 intersection to Stage Road, and that's, I know it was looked at last year, and there was some discussion about possible remedies, but I'm not sure where it's at, so I'm looking forward to seeing what might be coming up there.
The state acquired the property to potentially move that a while ago.
Oh,
I think.
that's, yeah.
But I don't know if the town wants it either, because it would shift that intersection from Northwood to Nottingham. Too, so.
Well, last year, when this came up, I was asking that question because I remembered the property being acquired, but never heard any more, and was really more curious of where is it. And so then it kind of went a little further. The state, I guess they did have something probably way back here. And I found out too that there was maybe boards that, I don't know if it was boards or residents that maybe were against the idea of doing anything up there at one point. So there's history there too. Anyway, we'll see what.
What about 156 and 152? Any more discussion on that?
That's something, I don't know if there's anything there. So I'm going to be looking for anything that is already, maybe in the works. And I'll mention that when I see it. But if there's something that us as a town want to bring new, and also want to be, I think, as a town involved in maybe partially funding, whatever, the more the town of Nottingham's involved, the more apt we are to get an approval on help with it, so.
We mentioned 152, 156 to them a couple of times.
Yeah.
Because we discussed it when Kyle came to one of our meetings. We discussed it during the, that workshop where we all got together for the FEMA issues. Remember, we had talked about it then? And then, did it also go in a recent letter from the Board of Selectmen?
Well, Charlene spoke to it too, when she
Yes.
sat on the board as.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's been brought up a few times, so that should at least be on
The
their
radar.
radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was in the 10-year plan a few
10
years
years
ago.
ago?
Well, when it was supposed to be getting shortlisted a few years ago, when a rep came to speak to us about it, and I think that was one of the intersections that was on there too. So.
Because the truckers do use Church Street instead of coming down to head east.
Yeah, there was talk about making a section at the end of 156 one-way. So there wouldn't be the problem if we straightened out that T intersection, people shining lights right into that house that's on the corner.
Right. Yep.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Can I turn back? Colin Lentz from Stratford Regional came and spoke to the last Trails Committee meeting, the beginning of the month, and he did indicate that some of the federal money can be used for trails and alternative transportation. And Donna Denise has been invited to the next Trails meeting, which is always the first Thursday evening of the month, and we're going to talk about Marston and possibly developing, well, we, the Trails Committee, developing a trail system there. So there might be a good connection.
Good.
With Colin Lentz and Trails Committee and BOS, and get something happening out there.
Excellent. All right. Anybody else? Last chance? No? We've completed all our items on the agenda for tonight, so at this point, a motion to adjourn would be appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Think about